What's going on, everybody? Stefan Coons here, and welcome to the Everyday Pursuit podcast. Today, I'm talking about the booty. Yes, I know that a lot of people on Instagram and social media are all about the butt right now, and I totally get it. Both men and women with like a good behind, right? It looks good. You fill out a pair of yoga pants, you fill out a pair of jeans. Like, I get it, okay? So I'm going to tell you exactly how to build glutes. And this is just honestly coming from a lot of observation, okay? I do follow some people such as like Brett Contreras and people that are kind of considered like glute experts. And I've been actually like diving into this a lot lately with some of my clients, both male and female. They're like, look, I want to build stronger glutes or bigger glutes. And I'm going to break this down into a couple different sections, okay? So the first section I'm going to break this down into is like how to actually grow your glutes, right? How to gain size, how to shape your butt, how long it's going to take, what lifts you should be doing, what your nutrition should look like. So don't go anywhere if you want to learn that. I'm going to break it all down. And then I'm going to kind of go a little bit on the performance side because I do think they both matter. So before we dive in though, real quick, if you find this episode valuable or you've listened to any of our other episodes, I want to ask you a favor, okay? Can you please pause this right now? Can you go give us a 5-star review if you feel like we're worth it? Can you please go subscribe to the podcast? And after this episode, if you want to take a screenshot and tag me, it's going to be at pursuit_HP on Instagram. That would be awesome. I would really, really appreciate that. All right, so let's dive in. So I'm just going to give you an example of a client that I had, okay? Because I like to tell the stories of real life situation because I think this is going to help you a lot more than just giving you theory. So I had this client, we're going to keep her unnamed. Yes, it was a female a few years ago. And she was about 130 pounds. She was 5'4". And she was in like decent shape. She didn't really have much of a butt. She didn't really have like tone anywhere, but her number one goal, like she was like, I don't want to be fat, but I'm okay with gaining some weight as long as I get a butt because I've never had a butt. And she didn't. It was a very, flat backside, really wasn't like built up legs. So I said, okay, well, I'm going to help you do that. But I want to tell you something. I want to tell you that it's going to take you probably like at least a year to look at a progress photo and be like, wow. And this was a girl that did a lot of like 2-month programs and she followed, doing lunges and glute bridges for a month. And she's like tried things in the past. She's bought PDFs. She's done all these things. And really what it came down to is she didn't eat enough and she didn't work out consistently for long enough. And I told her that. I'm like, I'm just gonna be super upfront with you. I can get you there. Like we together can get there, but you also have to embrace the fact that it's going to take a long time. Like comparatively to like what she was used to when I say a long time. And I said, if you want a butt that you're like really proud of, that you want to wear tight jeans all the time. And you're like, I've had like a ass transformation, then it's probably going to be 2 or 3 years. And I set that framework and I want you guys to know this too. Their glutes are very powerful muscles, but it's a pretty big muscle group. And if you're genetically don't have a butt and you want a butt, it's going to be hard, right? Like it's like me having little small arms and then I'm like, I want these freaking cannons. It's going to be a challenge for me, right? I'm not going to just grow big arms by just kind of hitting them and kind of eating a little bit to grow them. Like I'm going to have to really dedicate, hey, I got to blast my arms at least 3 days a week. I have to progressively overload them. I have to have high volume and I have to eat enough to where when I'm breaking down that muscle, I'm recovering it. And so I had that conversation with her. She was like, all right, I'm down. We only got to work together about a year. She had to leave because she actually moved states and this was an in-person client, but it's the same thing with our online clients. And the cool thing about this girl though, is during that year, she really did like totally change her mindset. She's like, look, I know it's going to take a long time. And that's why you have to know before you're getting things. I know it's going to take a long time. I know I'm not going to see results overnight, but if I can look after that 1 year and have a noticeably difference in my butt, it's worth it. because that's the reality, guys. It's a long process. So she was actually stuck to her stuff very well. No, she wasn't perfect. None of our clients are perfect, but she did a lot of the right things. The cool thing is after the year, not only did she have a pretty good booty transformation, but like I said in the beginning, she really wasn't toned. She kind of had a flat stomach, not really toned arms. At the end of it, she was very toned everywhere. She almost had a little bit of abs. Her tricep was popping a little bit. Her delts, her back was actually pretty shredded. Things she never had before, all while focusing on her glutes. And part of the reason, and that's not the only thing we worked, right? But I told her, hey, well, you can't work your glutes every day. You can only work your glutes, but in order to like get you to have better glutes, we're not just going to do glute bridges, okay? We're going to do lunges. We're going to do squats. We're going to do RDLs. We're going to do deadlifts. And you know what's really cool about all those movements, all those big compound movements? And, well, before I get into that, in order to do a squat well, you probably want to have a strong core. In order to do deadlifts well and effectively, you probably want to have a strong upper back to be able to hold that weight into place. So really, I told her, like, you got to kind of work your full body. I mean, maybe you could neglect, you know, your triceps and your chest a little bit and the anterior chain, so all those muscles in the front of you, but really you should be working everything. And so although we worked the booty more than we probably did anything else, she still was, you know, focused on other aspects of her fitness. And although the booty might have been the most important thing, she got in really good shape everywhere else. So that's really important to understand, because the movements to grow a big lower body muscle group, whether they're your quads or your butt or your hamstrings, they require a lot of effort, right? And that is going to cause you to burn calories. That's going to cause you to put on more muscle, and the more muscle you have effectively helps your metabolism. So just realize you could grow a booty by like just hitting your booty, but I mean, it doesn't really take that much, you know. It's not as much as people think. It's more effective to grow muscle everywhere. And honestly, I've seen girls that just work their butt a lot and they actually really neglect like their quads and their hamstrings, and it kind of looks weird. It's, from a man's perspective, I think it's much more, and a trainer, much more attractive and aesthetically pleasing, both men and women, to have glutes, but also have nice legs. Like, they're both, I think, equally important. And to be honest with you, it looks a little bit weird. Kind of like side note, if you see a girl or a guy and they have like a really big butt and like no legs, it might be a Brazilian butt lift, a BBB, right? It might be some implants, because theoretically, in order to grow the glutes, yeah, you could like never hit your quads, but it just generally doesn't happen. Like, if you're growing your glutes, you're probably doing pretty heavy like deadlifts and glute bridges and maybe lunges, and those things hit your quads and your hamstrings, so your legs will just probably grow, okay? So that's that. So let's break it down into training. In order to grow your glutes, you need literally one thing. You need, well, as far as training goes, you need progressive overload. Now, how you get that, and this is honestly the same rule for almost any muscle group, how you get that is different than how you would grow, or how you would like get better cardio, right? And this is kind of the difference between progressive overload with the muscle and like getting better cardio. Progressively overloading your muscle is a challenge because your body is going to be generally adaptive. So maybe the first few years you're into lifting, or the first year, it's easy because your body is kind of weak and your glutes are weak. And so by you hitting more weight each week or each month, like, it's easy, but eventually your body hits a wall and you have to like really manipulate things to get better. Like, there's so many variables. You have to maybe say, oh, more time under tension, or maybe I'll do pauses. So for example, if you're like, I'm hitting a glute bridge and my max is 315, for you to like get up higher or do 4 sets of 10 at 225, for you to be able to do 4 sets of 10 at 245, it's not like you just jump 5 pounds every week and it just keeps going and you never stop. I wish it was that easy, but it's not. And so you have to experiment of like, did I not rest long enough? Should I implement more rest in between my sets? Should I rest my body more during the week? Should I do more time under tension? Should I do pause reps? Should I work other things like lunges? Will those help my glute bridges? Like, there's a lot that goes into it from the biomechanical standpoint and like the strength standpoint, which is primarily neurological. It's what happens with the body. And the reason I'm explaining this to you is because it is different than cardio. Like, I've, you know, cycled long distances before and ran decently long distances, and there's not a lot of variables. Yeah, like the weather, but other than that, like running's running, and you progressively get better by running longer and longer. And there's certain things you could do. You could do speed training. Um, you could, help strength training to get you to run longer distances. But basically you just do it more often, and it's kind of the same thing. And it really is just like doing the same thing. Now, weightlifting is similar, but I think it's more challenging, and there's more like nuances you have to think about. And so progressively overloading the glutes for the first year is pretty easy. You're going to keep probably making gains. But after you've been lifting for 3, 4, 5 years, let's say you're hitting your glutes 2 days a week for 5 years, you got to get creative. They'll grow, right? But your progress starts slowing down significantly after a few years. So you have to switch things up. You can't just do glute bridges all the time. You have to do movements, lunges, deficit lunges, different things, different loads. Maybe you're doing front rack stuff. Maybe you're using a safety bar. You're doing different movements and different stimulus so your body keeps guessing, and that's the progressive overload, okay? So that, hopefully that wasn't too confusing, but that's how you do it with exercise. Now, in combination, what you have to understand, girls, this is mostly for you, if you want to grow a muscle group, it's very challenging to grow it if you're not in a caloric surplus, which means eating more calories than your maintenance, right? You have to be eating extra. So when your body goes to repair, it actually grows the butt. And the problem I see is the girls want skinny waist, right? Nice big butt and like nice muscular legs. Well, it doesn't all happen at once. Now I'll just to break off a little bit, you can, right? In theory, keep a low body fat percentage and gain a butt by doing a body recomp, but it's very, very challenging and it takes a long time. Probably just like a guy that wants to bulk. Yeah, he could slowly put on muscle like a few pounds a year doing a body recomp realistically, but it's very challenging. What's probably a better like a plan of attack would be to actually do a bulk. Now, it doesn't have to be an 800 calorie surplus bulk, but to try to actually put on size. Because this is the cool thing about muscle. Let's say you're a female and you're eating 2,000 calories a day. And you're like, I'm going to eat 2,500 calories a day to gain a butt. Once you do that, okay, once you gain it, let's say a year later, you're at, I'm not saying to be at a bulk for a year, but let's say a year later, you do a couple of cuts and bulks and you have a butt, and the butt you have doesn't go anywhere. It stays there, whether you're going to cut or a bulk, as long as your protein intake's high and your calories aren't like too crazily low. So the thing about gaining muscle is if you're smart, you can keep it whether you're on a cut. Now, in order to gain it, it does take time and it does take the extra calories. The problem is a lot of girls that I've trained, and I guess this is men too, but mostly I see with females, is they don't want to get fat. Totally understand. But the thing is, you're going to probably gain a little bit of body fat if you want your butt to get bigger. That is the reality. Just like a guy, this is men go, I want bigger legs. I want a bigger chest. I'm like, all right, do you actually want to get bigger, or do you just want it to look bigger? Because if you want it to look bigger from a guy's perspective, I'm like, you could just cut. Because if you just cut like down to 10% body fat or 8%, you would probably look shredded. I can't tell you how many times I do a cut and people go, wow, you look so much bigger, right? Even though I lost 5 pounds and 3% body fat. So they go, no, I want to be bigger. Like I want to be a bigger person. I'm like, okay, cool. So you can do that, but you also have to know that you're going to probably not have abs while you do this. You're going to you're definitely get bigger and stronger, but you won't really see the fruit of your labor until you've cut back down. Cool. And I'm actually doing a bulk with a male client of mine. And he's like, dude, the hardest part is mentally, like knowing that trusting the process, right? Like, hey, I look like I'm getting fatter. I look like I'm getting out of shape. And he's not, he's getting stronger. All of it's in the right place. But when you start to lose that definition and you've had a 6-pack for a while or been defined, it is hard. And so it's the mentality. And the female clients I've worked with in the past, and this client specifically that I was talking about at the beginning of the podcast, I told her that, like, you're going to gain a butt, but you're going to, like, in that time, in that bulking phase, and I think we did like 3-month phases, you're going to be a little fluffier, and you just have to embrace it. Because once you've got the butt, right, even though the fluffiness comes along with it, you get to lose the fluffiness, but you can keep the butt. if you're smart about your nutrition. And of course she had me as her coach. So, you know, she had the guidance and she was doing the right things. And the thing is, you like for any cuts and bulks, like gaining a butt is the same thing as getting bigger arms or bigger chest or whatever. It's probably more beneficial that you do not, I wouldn't say aggressive, but a kind of aggressive bulk. Only because I see people, and look at, this was 100% me. I see so many people that they're so afraid of gaining body fat because they want to look so shredded and good all the time that they don't eat enough. They just don't eat enough. Now they're training hard, right? Because they know that training hard helps them be skinnier or helps them, you know, gain muscle, and it makes them feel good, right? When you like bust your ass in the gym and you're sweaty and you're just destroyed, like it feels good. But you also have to refuel yourself. And I can be super honest with you guys. I struggled with this for like 8 or 9 years. I wanted to get bigger, but not at the expense of losing my abs, which literally doesn't, they're the complete opposite, right? It's like, well, I want to, it's like saying, I want to like have a lot of money in my savings, but not at the expense of cutting back on spending. Like they don't go hand in hand. And you got to kind of realize that. And it is hard because we live in this, and trust me, from a trainer's perspective, it's very hard for me to bulk mentally because we live in this society where it's like, you got to look like an Instagram model all the time. Maybe you don't have the same pressure on you. I feel like sometimes I do as a trainer. So for me, if I were to bulk and get like a little belly while I did it, I would be not comfortable doing that. Just straight up with you guys. Like it sucks because I feel like I need to show up and have a certain physique. And the reason I know that you might be feeling the same way is because I talk to my clients and they're like, well, I want to bulk, but I don't want to be chubby. And I'm like, why not? And some of these people are single. Some of them are in relationships, and they're like, honestly, I've had some deep conversation with my clients and they're like, honestly, I think it's societal pressure. Like I don't want to feel fat. And I'm like, but you're not fat. Like you're gaining body fat, but you're getting stronger. Like it's okay. And they're like, no, like I'll feel so bad about myself. And it sucks because even though you're becoming a stronger, more efficient, probably long-term, more healthy, capable version of yourself, you feel bad about yourself. And I don't want you, whether you're a female or male listening to this, to say like, I want to get a butt, and then also have unrealistic expectations that are going to make you feel negative about yourself going into this. So I'm going to lay it out. Okay. And to wrap it up, you can gain a butt. You just need to progressively overload. You need to give yourself a year or more to see a huge transformation. You need to eat in a caloric surplus a vast majority of that time. It doesn't need to be big. It could be, a few hundred calories a day, 300 calories a day, right? So the chances of you gaining a bunch of fat if you're at 300 calorie surplus isn't very high, right? You probably won't gain very much fat, but you also have to realize that it might happen. And if you really want to be aggressive about it, if you're like, dude, can I do it in 6 months? Sure. You can do it you can gain a really good butt transformation in 6 months versus a year. But if you do that, you also have to understand that it's going to take you it's going to be a more difficult process when you cut. Because if you're going to do 6 months, instead of being at a 300 calorie surplus, you might need to be at a 600 calorie surplus. So at that point, although you'll get that butt faster, the chances of you gaining body fat are in theory twice as high. Not saying that you will, but like you're eating double the calories. And it's not like that. It's not like, oh, if you eat 50% more calories, you can get there in half the time. I'm just throwing out numbers. Okay. But in theory, like the more aggressive bulk you're at, then it could be more beneficial. I will say though, there is like law of diminishing returns with nutrition. So let's just say that you were working out and your body, no matter if you ate 10,000 calories more or 500 calories more, your body's like, I only need 400 to get a better butt, or to gain this muscle group. It could be any muscle, right? But I only need 400 calories. Anything beyond that is you're just giving me extra body fat. Now we don't know that number. That would be nice to have a conversation with our body and know that exact number, but we do that through experimentation, right? So let's say you're at a 300 calorie surplus and you're like, oh, okay, well this week I have my clients do body scans so we can actually see their body fat, their muscle mass, all that. Part of the reason is if I say, hey, Jessica, you're going to be at a 300 calorie surplus. Let me know what your body scan says. She might go to the body scan and it says, oh, Jessica gained 0% body fat and 0.3 pounds of muscle. Perfect. Then she might say, well, I want to get there faster. Fine. So I say, well, let's do 500 calories. Well, at that point, it might say, oh, the next week she gained 0.5 pounds of muscle, right? But she gained 0.5% body fat. Now, Jessica might say, and this is all personal preference, oh, I don't like that. And I'm like, okay, well, let's go back down to 300, but your results will be slower. Or she might go, hey, wow, I'm getting to the booty faster. I'm gaining muscle faster. It's okay that I gain a little bit of body fat, right? So you have to have the science behind it to know the experiment. And that's honestly what coaching is, like for a lot of my clients. If you don't know, it's a lot of back and forth and experimenting. And, this is what I have to do for myself because I coach myself. Hey, does this work? Does this work? But I have to have the data too. I have to go in and get my body scans. I have to take the progress photos. I have to look at the weight I've been lifting, because guessing is just going to get you in a very frustrated state where you'll probably give up, to be completely honest with you. Have a plan going into it, know how long it's going to take, and be totally open to experimentation. Because if you're new to lifting and you're like, look, I've never lifted and actually tried to grow a butt and progressively overloaded my muscles for like a year or two, it's a lot of experimentation, 100%. Like there's no in between. You have to experiment. You have to allow yourself time to see what works for you. But the cool thing is, and this is the last thing I'm going to tell you, the best thing about this is you, within that 1 year, you will know what works for you. If you actually are serious about your nutrition, you're serious about your training, you will know like, oh, this is how my body adapts pretty well. Now I will say though, there's a general rule of thumb. Don't get into the mindset of like, oh, it's my genetics and my genetics. Like genetics make a difference, but there's a general rule of thumb that works for like 98% of people. So if you are progressively overloading, you're doing hypertrophy lifting, you're eating surplus calories, you'll gain muscle. Don't be like, oh, well, I can't and my genetics won't let me. Now there are outliers, obviously, but don't buy into that, because that mindset is the biggest thing that's going to limit you. 100%. I see it with so many clients. They're like, I'm skinny and I can't gain weight, or I'm fat and I just can't lose weight. You don't understand. You don't get my genetics, blah, blah, blah. And you know what's crazy is when you look at the things they're doing, their lifestyle and the foods they're eating and the exercise they're doing are way off from the goal they want, regardless of their genetics. And you know what's crazy? The same people that said they had bad genetics or their genetics wouldn't let them, whatever, fill in the blank. Once they actually were consistent at the gym 5 days a week, whether they were cutting or bulking, and they wanted to accomplish that goal and they had the right nutrition, you want to know what? They actually started making pretty damn good progress. And then now they can't use that as an excuse. So don't be that person. Don't think in your head like, yeah, well, I get what he's saying and he's giving me some framework that makes sense, but like he doesn't know my genetics. I don't care. Okay. That's like the last thing. And if it is true, if it is your genetics, you don't know either because you haven't done it for a year. So go do it for a year. Then if after you did it for a year and you're super consistent and you're consistent with your nutrition, if you come back and you're like, I made no progress, which literally won't happen, but if you did, then you can start talking about your genetics, right? Because the genetic ceiling of what you think you can accomplish, you haven't even like poked the top of the ceiling with a 10-foot broomstick, okay? For most of you. And you're not going to know what your genetic ceiling is until you've been lifting for years and years consistently. Like your body is way more capable than you think, but you just haven't been consistent. That is the reality, right? It's like somebody saying, I just can't save money. I just can't save money. I just can't save money. And you look at their spending habits and their job and you're like, have you tried to get a better job? Have you went back to school to get more education to get a higher paying job? Have you cut back on these things? And then you start like actually looking at their bank account and their budget and the lifestyle they live. And they're like, well, I do go out to eat and no, I haven't got a new job. And then the truth starts coming out, right? So my biggest challenge to you is if you want to do this and you're serious, go ahead. But you need to have realistic expectations before you start. And you need to not blame your genetics. You don't know until you've actually went and done it. So hopefully this episode was really helpful. If you guys feel like you need extra help, my call to action to you is go visit us at pursuithp.com, book up a free call with myself or one of our coaches, And I'd love to chat with you about what specifically you need to accomplish your goals, because it is different for everybody, although the construct generally is the same. And once again, if you did find this episode valuable, if you could give us a review, if you could like, subscribe, and share, or share this on social media, put on your stories, and tag us on Instagram at pursuit_HP. I appreciate it. I love you guys. Thank you so much for the support, and we'll talk to you next time.